Being Mormon has been, it's like it's difficult, Mormon and gay. Um, it's having two conflicting identities. Um, and for my experience, I spent so many years trying to resolve and reconcile the two identities that I had to come to a point of getting rid of one of them, so to speak. That being the Mormon identity, because they're just so seemingly irreconcilable. Because of the irreconcilability, I spent a lot of my life before coming out, especially in a depressed state, kind of like trying to achieve an unobtainable task. I realized why people get depressed and suicidal, and because you're constantly trying to resolve something that's unresolvable. And so part of my process in coming to some sort of resolution was to actually kind of foreclose on my Mormon identity and let that go. That being said, it's a conflict that's never completely gone because I live in this community, this Mormon community, and it's always coming up. I still have family that's really involved in the Mormon church, and there's still a sense of, I guess, alienation and separateness, which has been difficult. And I think that's why it was so difficult for myself in coming out and coming to terms with my sexuality, is because of the messages that I am so different and that's a bad thing instead of a celebration. In the Utah Mormon culture, that's diversity is really discouraged. And so part of my healing process has been to accept that and accept diversity and celebrate my own diversity and identifying the good things that diversity brings and my own brand of diversity brings to the table. But it's certainly difficult. It's frustrating to always have to defend kind of my existence or my being. Just now they're going through, again, it's a legislative year and they bring up stuff related to equal rights for gays, and I get so tired of having to teach people in the community. I guess this is what I'm doing right now about being gay, just in order to feel like I live in a safer world and a world that's more accepting of me and those like me. But there is an amount of acceptance that's required because it is the way that it is, and hopefully by doing things like this, it'll make it so people in the future won't have to go through that angst that's related to all of this. And it's so unfortunate. It breaks my heart when I see the next generation of gay Mormons still the same ideas being perpetuated that I grew up with, kind of the conceptualization that you're shameful and just basically a bad person. It's very abusive, and I've in a lot of ways I've come to, I guess, conceptualize being a gay Mormon as kind of being a survivor of abuse, because you really internalize a lot of negative things about yourself, and you actually experience physical intimidation and verbal harassment, and I've experienced those things myself, and all reinforcing the idea that you're unworthy because of your sexuality and less than. So not only having to fight that external the external violence and abuse, but then internalizing it and then having to correct it as it became depression and self-loathing for myself and for others, because I've heard and read so many of these narratives, they're just the same. It becomes ironically humorous, if it wasn't so tragic. So for my situation today, well, when I came out, it took a lot of pressure off of me, and I felt a lot of happiness that I hadn't been feeling in I don't know that I ever even really felt since I had been in the closet. Once that kind of settled down and things kind of swung back to more balance, I do feel better than when I was in the closet, that's for sure. I have a partner, we've been together, this will be our 4th year. My family is really supportive of us, even though they are devout Mormons. I know that's been very difficult for them to try and reconcile that. And it has created some conflict, I guess. Even though we are really supportive, we still kind of have some impasses sometimes, where we can't resolve those differences. And then for myself, it's interesting because I'll still have moments of, it's very similar to like a PTSD survivor, someone who's survived has post-traumatic stress disorder, that I can have moments where I'll be kind of triggered and just kind of like that shame and that fear and that guilt will just come back really strong, and like I won't be in the right mind because of the emotions will be so strong. And so I have to kind of do work around that to pull myself out of that. And a big healing thing for me has been telling my story like I am now. I teach diversity and I go and I speak at different classes every now and again about being gay and being Mormon. And I think it really is a compensation for growing up not being able to be seen or to tell my story and have myself validated. And then to do that now is to make up for that lost time and those lost experiences. It definitely has been, I've had an arrested development in being a gay Mormon. You grow up as heterosexual and you're socialized into, what's it like to date and create relationships, and you don't have that guidance or I didn't have that guidance, I'll speak for myself. I didn't have that guidance as a young gay man, and so when I did come out at I think it was 22 or 23, I essentially, it was like being a 14-year-old boy again and having to explore and understand, what are gay relationships and what are relationships in general and dating and sexual boundaries and all that kind of stuff that didn't come earlier with women because there wasn't that sexual drive there. So I wouldn't even have to figure that out. So that had a significant impact in, I think, delaying my development. But I feel like I also have moments, just like I have those PTSD moments about being gay, I also have moments where I love it. And I'm so happy to be different, and that my life is not just kind of this standard, this is what we do, everybody do this and go do that and get married and have your 2.5 kids or 2.5 kids. And so I appreciate that because it does, I think, give me a unique perspective that I wouldn't have otherwise. And though it's been painful for me to detach from my culture, that being the Mormon culture, it also has given me a lot of insight because I used to see kind of the life through, well, not kind of, I did see life through a Mormon lens, and now that I'm not part of that, I can actually kind of take that Mormon lens off and look at it itself and kind of objectively and critically look at Mormonism. And I feel like it gives me a broader worldview, and I can understand people who are non-Mormon and their views of the Mormon people and the Mormon culture more. So in that way, though I lost a community, in another way I feel like my community has also expanded because I feel more connected to non-Mormons. So I'm thankful for that because it was so scary for me to kind of detach from Mormonism because that was my community, and fearing that loss, that knowing that there are other people and other groups that don't think negatively of you for being gay and actually accept and celebrate you and will defend you against your own people, so to speak, for lack of a better term. But I think it's a continual thing, and it's particularly difficult staying here in Utah and Salt Lake Valley, and I imagine it always will be as long as I'm here. I don't know what else you do, though. I guess you just accept it and you do things like this. So.